Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Rheum to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. Hi there. The following is a message sponsored by AbbVie. As we all know, rheumatic diseases like RA are not always physically apparent. For some patients, their disease journey may include having to try several options to manage their condition. It can feel like there is no hope in finding something that may work for you. That is why I'm so excited to tell you about Room for Dialogue from AbbVie. It's an initiative designed to empower us to address these emotions and feelings with our doctors, because being open and honest with your rheumatologist can help you find a care plan that is appropriate for you. If you're living with a rheumatic disease and feel like your care plan isn't working for you, it's time to talk to your doctor. Visit roomfordialogue.com to learn more. That's roomfordialogue.com, spelled RHEUMFORDIALOGUE.com. Let's turn now to the podcast episode. I'm so excited today to have Helen Sampson-Mullen with us. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And I would love to just have you let the audience know really quickly, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Yes, I live in Wilmington, Delaware, but as you may be able to hear, I'm actually from the northeast of England originally, but I've lived here 28 years now, and I have a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, yeah. And what part of England are you from?
The northeast, so Newcastle, South
Oh,
Shields.
okay, perfect.
Just on the end of the Tyne
Wow,
in
amazing.
Scotland.
That's great. Okay, awesome. And we're going to delve first into your diagnosis story, which we often call like a saga. And we were just talking before we started recording that it can be really hard to summarize this in a few minutes. So, but if you could just let everyone know, how and when did you get diagnosed?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in December 2018. And the diagnosis, it took a little while, but I'm really lucky that I have seropositive rheumatoid arthritis. So it was quick, except that they kept losing my lab results. So I felt like I had a swollen knee in November. I had an emergency appendectomy in August, then a swollen knee, and then took blood samples. And then it was by December, they decided it was definitely rheumatoid arthritis. And so, yeah, I had just turned 50. I was just 51. So it was quite a roller coaster. And the rheumatologist that I had to start with was not really a good fit for me. So I felt that impacted how at first he wanted to give me lots of treatments before the blood samples were in. And I felt that I wanted to have an answer as a scientist. I wanted to have all the ducks in a row before I knew what I was diagnosed with. So there was a little bit of friction there. So I think it was just very confusing at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think almost everyone listening probably can relate. I mean, it's not only confusing to not really know exactly that definitive diagnosis at times, but
Mhm.
also to be like, I have something called rheumatoid arthritis, but it's like systemic. It's not just quote unquote the osteoarthritis, like the one
Yeah.
associated with aging. It's a different
Yes.
kind. And you mentioned that you're a scientist. I do want to go on a quick side note because I think this is important to understanding how you were affected by this. So, can you share a little bit of your background?
So I studied physiology at university, physiological sciences, and then I did a PhD in GI medicine, and then I did a postdoc in GI research, and then I went into clinical research in pharmaceuticals, where I worked on heart disease, migraine, cancer, phase one cancer studies. So I sort of had a big range of different areas of research that I
Mm.
worked on over the course of a career. And I had never really heard of, funnily enough, my PhD was around inflammatory bowel disease, which ulcerative
Mm.
colitis is considered an autoimmune
Right,
condition.
right.
So fascinating that I hadn't bumped up against rheumatoid arthritis before. So I didn't really, I had to research it myself. And
Yeah.
so it was really only once I got the final diagnosis that I went in and researched rheumatoid arthritis to say, okay, well, so now what do I need to know? And
Mhm.
then come up with my list of questions from my geeky, nerdy perspective of, all of
Yeah.
the research background.
Well, but it's so helpful to have that ability. In some ways, it's helpful to have the ability to wade through that research, but it also can be this is just my observation from running the educational programs and support groups over the years. Sometimes the people that are the deepest in healthcare or in science have almost a harder time sometimes because this is just my observation that they're just aware on a deeper level of what might be happening cellularly and maybe have more fear about the disease.
Mhm.
And then also is that because it's like that Dunning-Kruger curve where you're like in the valley of disability, you learn
Yep.
more about something and then you become
Yeah.
more just it's more confusing. The more information you learn, the more it's like unclear which way to go. Whereas I think people who anyway, sorry, I'm rambling, but yeah, that can be really hard.
I think I agree. I totally agree. I think it's one thing to research something out of interest and scientific integrity, but it's another thing when it's your body and your perspective. And I think there were points where I chose to walk away from researching something in more depth. And actually, once I found the rheumatologist that was a really good fit for me, to actually step back and trust her in some ways versus getting so deep down into things that was almost more anxious and experiencing more side effects because I knew about them versus actually just
Yes.
trusting the process. So it's a fine balance. I always want to know a bit more, but then I could see where it could sometimes get in my way and fuel anxiety. So yeah.
Yeah, it's once the idea is planted in your head that this rare thing might happen, even though you like logically know it's rare, emotionally it's hard to convince your brain that it's rare, right? And so, you mentioned finding a better fit with a rheumatologist. That's a really like an FAQ that I get is people ask like, how do you find that good fit? Or how did you find your second one?
Yes. Yeah. Well, first it was hard to get in with a rheumatologist to start with. So
Yes.
my primary care somehow got me in with this first rheumatologist. And the reason, I mean, I'm sure he's a very good rheumatologist, but he very much was ruling with fear. If you don't take this
Mm.
now, then. And I didn't feel like I had all the facts. And so it felt like there was some friction there where I didn't feel heard. Subsequently, I went to an annual GYN appointment, and my doctor there said, actually, I'm seeing a number of patients who have your condition who are doing really well, and they're seeing this person. And so that was the link. And I actually called and got a second opinion there. And I thought, this is where I want to be. She listened. She was really supportive. She gave me lots of different options. I felt like she was partnering with me in my health, and that felt much better than the "you must do this" without me
Yes.
understanding the whole picture.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a shame the first one didn't really seem to recognize the depth of your own understanding, having worked in clinical trials. Like, you clearly have a high threshold for understanding the reasons why. And there are many reasons why he probably
Yeah,
wanted you to start taking the medication. Early and aggressive
right.
treatment is associated with better outcomes. But if he doesn't take the time to
Yeah,
explain that to you and just shouts it at you as you have to do this, no conversation, then, that's not going
yeah.
to work. So I'm glad you got that word of mouth. I mean, it's the year 2025, and it's still kind of how I get good recommendations is word of mouth, for better or for worse, right?
Was.
Yeah.
And as I was researching more treatments, my current rheumatologist encouraged me to get a second opinion,
Hmm.
Johns Hopkins, which is a immunology sort of
Yeah.
center of excellence. And I thought, wow, that really speaks volumes to, you know, being involved in somebody's care and saying that, there's something that you're asking about that is more research focused and they're the researchers. Why don't you talk to them?
Yeah.
So I think that really spoke a lot to me about how she was showing up in service of my whole care.
I love that. Well, it's so great to hear that you have that good relationship with your rheumatologist. I do too. And people ask me how, and I said, well, I just lucked into it. She was the first rheumatologist that my primary care referred me to in 2003. And she, fortunately for me, hasn't moved and
Oh,
hasn't left. So I feel like it's like a unicorn.
yeah.
She's left her practice and started at different practices a couple times, but she's still geographically in my area. So I know I'm,
It is amazing to have incredible practitioners in your sort of circle of excellence.
yeah, it's really a team. I mean, speaking of that, my next question was going to be about what has helped you cope with the ups and downs of managing RA. And, we mentioned a little bit of ups and downs, maybe of like fears about the treatments, fears about side effects. Yeah. And what in general, what are some of the things that have helped you? Hi there. The following is a message sponsored by AbbVie. As we all know, rheumatic diseases like RA are not always physically apparent. For some patients, their disease journey may include having to try several options to manage their condition. It can feel like there is no hope in finding something that may work for you. That is why I'm so excited to tell you about Room for Dialogue from AbbVie. It's an initiative designed to empower us to address these emotions and feelings with our doctors, because being open and honest with your rheumatologist can help you find a care plan that is appropriate for you. If you're living with a rheumatic disease and feel like your care plan isn't working for you, it's time to talk to your doctor. Visit roomfordialogue.com to learn more. That's roomfordialogue.com, spelled RheumForDialogue.com. Let's turn now to the podcast episode.
Yeah, well, so I feel incredibly fortunate that I have a very supportive husband and two really supportive children, adult children, even, they're in their 20s now. I have a really great friend network that even when I really tanked, they would push me around the block in a wheelchair if I couldn't walk that day. I mean, they just really stood by me. So also, I think my work, so I don't work in clinical research anymore. I retrained as a coach and I'm an executive coach and do leadership development. I work for an incredible organization who are just so supportive and have been really flexible. I mean, I was traveling before diagnosis, maybe 7 out of 9 weeks to do
Mm,
leadership development trainings.
wow.
And now I don't travel at all. I just do coaching from home because the travel was just too much for my body. And I have made space for that. And I'm just really very grateful. I
That has,
also have great practitioners. And I also feel very fortunate to work with practitioners that maybe aren't sort of like I have a rheumatologist and I have a primary care physician who's phenomenal, who also specializes in integrative medicine. So I have sort of like the MD with a little bit integrative. So I really don't take
yeah.
that for granted. I work with a PT who does myofascial release,
Oh,
and that has been
so
huge.
nice.
I work with a therapist as well as and a coach. And so I have this sort of, I want to say knights at the round table, but I want a female
Yeah.
version of that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how to say that, but matriarchs of I don't know. But anyway, I
Yeah.
feel like I have
Queens of the round table.
yes, exactly. An incredible support system. And so I think that really helps. And then I have practices that help me. I have dry eye due to
Mhm.
the RA. And so every night I have the brood eye mask on. And so, while I have that on, I listen to meditation. So I meditate. I walk as much as I possibly can in between work commitments and functional issues. I've started a strength training practice. So I'm working with a PT so that
So
I
good.
can grow some strength because I think I just got weaker and weaker since my diagnosis because I was just in pain. And now this is really helping me. Yeah. So, I mean, I think those are the things that off the top of my head. Oh, nourishment. I try and eat lots of
Mhm.
vegetables, fruit, no ultra processed food. I mean, within reason, I'm gloriously imperfect. But
I love that. Oh, that might be the title of episode, Gloriously Imperfect.
yeah, it's just, it is what it is. There's a few things that slip in here and there, but in general, I'm really cognizant about this vehicle that I'm in right now struggles with inflammation. So how do it's almost like seeing how can I fuel my future self? That's, is it movement? Is it mindfulness? Is it, sort of like a spiritual connection? Like I love to be in nature and at the beach. And also, what I put in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have animal therapy with your
Oh,
dog.
I
Not
forgot
formal therapy, but yeah.
she's asleep under my desk. But yeah, I have the cutest little mini golden
You
doodle. She
really do.
is feisty as all get out. And she is just an absolute love. I mean, on days when if I have a flare and I'm off my feet, she'll just jump on the couch and she just lays on my heart.
Oh,
It's as if she gets it. And so complete unconditional love from we call her
yeah.
little Miss Fluffy Knickers. She's just very fluffy.
Fluffy knickers. That's so it's perfectly British. Wait, is your spouse British too or no?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay. Just wondering.
he's from Delaware.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Sorry. I had to mention the dog because
Yeah.
we have
Oh,
a lot of dog lovers and just animal lovers in the community. No, but I think it's just I think we all, when we're overwhelmed in the, just newly diagnosed time, want someone to just tell us this is the one thing you have to do. You have to meditate or you have to do strength training. Right? But it's really like a smorgasbord, like you just described. It's a lot of little things that add up to helping you have a sense of thriving and a sense of being able to be, like you said, gloriously imperfect. That maybe your body is itself not acting exactly perfectly with the inflammation, but you can help control what you can, as my old soccer coach used to say. Control the controllable, you know?
exactly. And I think at first it felt really, I mean, I think I genuinely had a pretty healthy existence before. So I think I
Mhm.
was a little disappointed that this happened. But, well, you know what? This is, there is no fault in this. It just is. And also, how do you make the best of it? But I recently got an aura ring, and I'm noticing it's quite helpful to see where some things are stressful and, where I have recovery, that it's really validating. Oh, okay, that really was good recovery for me. Or that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
was better pacing for me. Or, ooh, that was actually quite stressful, even though I didn't think it was. How do I build in more recovery? And
Mm.
so I think that's quite, sometimes some data has helped me as well, just because
Yeah.
to get out of the stories in my head, because
Yeah.
the brain can make so many of them.
Oh my gosh. No, and I think we have so few objective markers to show what's going on in our bodies. Obviously we have blood work, but that's very imperfect.
Mhm.
And so I've been hearing more about people's positive experiences, like with the Aura Ring or other sort of technological digital, trackers. What's the other one? I'll have to look it up. I think it's Visible. It's called Visible.
I just got this for my birthday, the Aura Ring. And as soon as I bought the Aura Ring, the visible stuff kept coming up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should have got that.
I mean, I'm sure that
But
they're all tools in the toolbox.
what's interesting is that the Aura Ring is all very much about health. But I was able to go in and put my diagnosis in. And so now that it bears that in mind with my data
Mhm.
somehow. The other thing I use, and this is all privilege because these are all expensive devices, The other thing I use is the Apollo. It's a vagus nerve stimulator. So I
Oh,
have that
wow.
either on my ankle or my wrist, and it gives you different vibes that kind of help you recover or go into sleep or unwind or even energize when I feel a little flat. And
Ah,
so, with that newest research about those
yeah.
implanted vagus nerve stimulators, which
I want one of
we're
those. Yeah.
excited about,
Yeah.
I actually pulled my Apollo out and I'm wearing it even more so now because now there's evidence that
Yeah.
the research on that was pretty incredible.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
60 efficacy.
Yeah,
I mean,
between that and CAR T cell therapy, this is looking like a
yes.
really good, knock on wood, but this is looking like a really good new era, to use Taylor
Yeah.
Swift language, a new era in rheumatology, which is for specifically rheumatoid arthritis in similar conditions. And yeah, and later this month, I'll be going to the American College of Rheumatology conference. Oh, the third one is the GLP-1s, and they're somehow having an effect on inflammatory arthritis beyond what they would expect from just the
Yes.
positive benefits of weight management if you are overweight and have inflammatory arthritis. So anyway, so stay tuned for more. But that's, yeah, that's wonderful to hear, like all the tools in your toolbox. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you've given me, I always keep everyone who's taken like the Room to Thrive program and the support groups. I keep it confidential unless the person gives me permission to talk about it publicly, which you have. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about, now that you've had a little time to digest the experience, like your experience with the Room to Thrive program. What were some of the things that were most helpful about that for you?
Oh, goodness. How long do you have?
I know.
Everything. Absolutely everything. Well, so first, I would say, actually, one of the things I didn't say in my coping toolkit was early on, somebody introduced me to somebody who had RA for 16 years or so. And they said, get involved in the Arthritis Foundation. And I had not wanted to because I just didn't really want to own the diagnosis, or I don't know what it was. I just was having a problem with that. But I did because I really respected her. And one of the webinars I went to was you. And I thought, look at her go. She is incredible. And I learned so much from that webinar. So I started then following you. And then I was like, oh my goodness, she has a course. So I signed up and I'm a researcher. So I have researched a ton, but I love the way that you present the data. It's so first, I think it's this, one of the secret sources is the community that you curate there. So you're one of several in a cohort, which is lovely. I love the way that you give the videos in advance so that you can really get the meat out of the substance of each particular piece of the Thrive model and then come to have a discussion about it, because I think that's where the learning lands. So I love the way you've structured it. I love that it's so evidence-based. I love that you bring everybody's voices in. And if somebody's got a particular perspective that's valuable, you share that, sort of this onward sharing from the discussion. So it's an evolving, really, and it's such a safe space. And as I was saying to you before we started recording, your superpower is empathy. And the way that you facilitate with just such respect and perspective it was really a beautiful experience. So I would highly recommend it to anybody who's on the fence. Dive
Oh,
right in.
yeah, that's so kind of you. I mean, everyone's feedback is amazing and helpful. And I do change the program at times based on, constructive
Yeah.
criticism and stuff. But having someone like you who really understands the research and evidence so much, like how, say that means a lot. And yeah, I do. It was, initially I was thinking I would work one-on-one with people, but I was honestly doing a group partly because I just figured I could help more people at once,
Mhm.
not realizing how I should have known as an OT, but anyway, how therapeutic the
Yeah.
process is of not just getting your own questions answered, but being able to process the material and the tools to thrive and the things we're learning about and the questions we have and the confusions we have and problem solve that together in a group. It's so normalizing, right? Everyone feels like we're the
That's,
only one. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. It was so normalizing because a lot of the time, especially I've always moved fast, doing lots of things, kind of type A. And pacing has been a real struggle for me.
Me too.
But the backlash to not pacing has also been a struggle. So, this whole thing where in my family, I'll say, well, I can do that, but not this. Or I can do one thing today, or today I can do three things. And they're not used to that. Whereas I
Wow.
was in a community of, wow, one thing, that's great for you. It felt really, yes, I'm doing great here versus
Mhm.
comparison with my old self looked very different versus being in a community of people who are also managing the same thing and going, yeah, I see you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny how often someone in one of the groups will say, "Well, this isn't that big, but I just wanted to share." And they share this monumental thing. I advocated for myself for the first time ever, or,
Yeah.
at an appointment, or, just I used one of my tools and I was so scared to sign up for an exercise class, but I did it and I showed up and I couldn't do the whole class, but I still, was proud of myself for getting there. I'm like, whoa, these are huge, and you're like,
Yes.
yeah. You look around the Zoom room and you see other people like clapping for you. And yeah, it's so, and you mentioned the Arthritis Foundation. I try to always be fair to be like, there are other groups and programs out there too. They have some support groups. So usually a monthly thing versus kind of the more intense weekly kind of structure that I have. But, that's also something, if that's somewhere that works for your schedule, that, look those up. I'll put a link to those in the chat for sure as well. And there's, the Spondylitis Association of America has some support groups that they, I think, run for free because it's a through their nonprofit. And it's
Mhm.
just so great to get help. But I think you touched on something earlier that really resonated, which was you didn't want to get involved with Arthritis Foundation because it would mean it was real in some way. And I think that's also the
Yeah, I
same thing about the support
resisted
group.
it.
Yeah.
I really resisted it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, this is totally me armchair psychoanalyzing, but I just had this thought that around like turning 50 and then getting this diagnosis, where you're
Mhm.
kind of in this liminal space where you're actually still young for what maybe your perception of what osteoarthritis is, but you're
Mhm.
also contending with, aging, just normal, quote unquote, aging, right? And then having this chronic thing on top and not maybe being where you fit in to a community like arthritis community.
I mean, I think I generally have a hard time with the arthritis. And I think we've talked about this where
Mhm.
it's people go, oh, arthritis, my grandma has that. But,
Yeah.
rheumatoid arthritis is a systemic inflammatory condition, as you said. I mean, in fact, it affects your internal organs, it affects your whole system. And
Mm,
so it feels, I wish that it was, I think we've talked about different terminology, right? So
yeah.
rheumatoid autoimmune or rheumatoid inflammatory condition or something is, y- you know, I mean, I think that I heard in a podcast somebody say rheumatoid arthritis is more similar to MS than it is to
I
arthritis.
think I've said that, and it's more similar to MS or lupus than
Or lupus,
osteoarthritis.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so and people go, oh.
Yeah.
Now they're like, "Oh, I get it's not just that, you ache a bit at the end of the day." I
Yeah.
it's so I feel like it's a really misunderstood condition, and I think that was hard because then it's like the Arthritis Foundation, maybe it would have been better if it was the Autoimmune Foundation. I was like, I
There
think
is actually the autoimmune association.
yes, I saw
Yeah.
that. So I was like, I don't know. But then also there's, over 100 autoimmune conditions and there's no specialty on autoimmune. They're all dealt with by different people. So
The
it's
conundrum.
challenging.
I feel like it's my destiny to be in like ambiguously named things because it's like I'm an occupational therapist. Oh, you help people get jobs. No, actually, we totally help people do the jobs of daily living. You're like, this that does like I need a marketing specialist for everything that I've done. Anyway, but I try to normalize it and remind myself like so many professions and so many conditions have naming problems, like, ophthalmology versus optometry, or,
Yeah.
physical therapist versus personal trainer. There's so many, or physical therapist versus occupational. But to get to the specificity of what this podcast is about arthritis, even naming it Arthritis Life, I actually kind of agonized about that because I'm like, it's not, it's really about inflammatory arthritis or autoimmune arthritis. But most
Mhm.
people don't use that like nomenclature. Like they use the diagnosis that they use the language of the diagnosis they have, which is
Yes.
rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis,
Yeah.
ankylosing spondylitis, or non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, or IBD, with
Yeah.
arthritis as a side effect of or a symptom, or and so maybe in some of your leadership trainings you'll come across a marketing person who can help us sort through all this.
Maybe.
But yeah, but I think that the feeling misunderstood about it and feeling like it's minimized is part of what we need to cope with. And that maybe even if it was named perfectly, even if it was named, a name that everyone automatically understood on some cognitive level, we'd still have to contend with the emotion sense of maybe people not getting it. They don't get it till they get it kind of
Yeah.
thing. I think parenting for me has been a good analogy for that. And even so, I only know how to parent. I only know the experience of parenting my own one child, but it's like you could, I worked as a pediatric occupational therapist. Now I cringe at some of the stuff I said to people with kids before, I think you should do this or whatever. And you don't really understand what it feels like to parent until you've done it. It's kind of the same, right, with our
Yeah.
conditions. But yeah, one of the other things I want to make sure to get to is before we met today, I always ask people, what is the thing you're most interested in chatting about or passionate, one of the things you're passionate about? And you had said, and I just love how you word things. I love how your brain works. Thriving with RA is a passion for me that I fail daily in and is definitely aspirational on many days. Which I'm like, where's the click the relate button? I clicked. And I think that I would just love to hear more about how do you conceptualize this whole idea of thriving? Because it is aspirational some days.
It is at times. It is. I mean, when I go back to the positive psychology training that I have, the idea is that if we have well-being and resiliency, we're able to flourish, or you could say thrive, right? And so also, how do you have well-being with a chronic illness? Well, it takes me back to the positive psychology of the PERMA model, which is, there's 5 buckets that you fill to fill your well-being. And then how do you build your resiliency? That sort of fuels your resiliency. So I think about this all the time because it's what we use in our practice. But PERMA it comes from Martin Seligman's theory from the book Flourish, but it's not just his theory. He takes it from a whole series of positive psychologists, all of their work together. But it means that if you invest you have something in each of the buckets of the following. So P is positive emotion, E is engagement, and that's about engagement within it. It's like when you find yourself in flow. And for some people, that might be painting or knitting or running or being in nature, but where you lose track of time.
Yeah.
R is relationship to others. M is meaning and purpose. See, and more recently in Tomorrow Mind, they wrote about mattering. And I think that's one of the things when you have a chronic condition and you need to manage your energy and not go to so many things, suddenly you can drop off people's radars and feel like you don't matter, right? And then it's achievement. So we still want to get some things done. So the idea is everybody's equation of those 5 things may look different at their best, but we need to invest in each one. Each one needs to have something in that bucket. So when I'm feeling like my well-being is a little bit, I look, where am I? Where's my PE? Usually for me, what's gone is engagement. I've not taken some time out to just be or get in the flow or do something creative. We have an art center in our local community, and I've been doing different classes with different art things and then practicing them at the weekend. And that gives me my E, right? So I just notice which ones fall off or have I not seen my people? The people who really fill me up. And so that structure really helps me from a scientific perspective. I just love having, an equation to play with. And then also resiliency. Adam Grant talks about it's not just the ability to bend without breaking, but it's the speed and strength of your return.
Wow. I hadn't heard that. I love that.
Yeah. So, so resilience is the speed and strength of your return from adversity. And so I often think about how do I chart myself to where I want to be? And also that bigger question of who do I want to be in this? Because at times when if I'm in a really bad flare and I am in 8 out of 10 pain and I can't move and my dog is crying because she wants to go for a walk and nobody else is home and I just feel so hopeless. It's okay. So what is possible here? Well, I could let her in the garden and I could, like, how do I, where is my resiliency in this moment? And how do I take care of myself so I have that strength and speed of return. Because if I just keep going at things at the speed that I was doing before this, then I tend to hurt myself more. So pacing becomes really important. Kindness. I think the biggest thing in this, one of my work colleagues, when I was diagnosed, said, "Have you done the self-compassion workbook?" She said, "Let's do it together." And we did it, 24 weeks of the Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer's self-compassion practices. And that has been huge, just to be kind to myself, to realize I'm not alone, and to notice, so mindfulness, self-kindness, and common humanity are the self-compassion. And that has been huge.
I love that, and I'm having to be self-compassionate to myself that I immediately had a negative thought because I bought that book and I have it physically near me, but it has not gotten into my brain through osmosis. I haven't actually read it. So I'm like, "Oh, how would you not read it? You're so interested in this." But I'm like, "No, that's part of it. You gotta just have self-compassion and say, I can get to it. I can control getting to it."
So, what helped me was that she had gone through the whole book. I think she had done the original. I think there's a course. And so we met every week and went through a chapter a week. And then I did the same with my sister. And we spent 24 weeks and we went through, every week was a different chapter. And so I went through it twice.
Wow.
And I think I needed
I love that. Yeah.
to
Well,
just be on a constant loop.
no, that's great. And I think that's one thing that I've discovered through even doing it sounds kind of, maybe, I don't know if it sounds like self-centered or something, or self-promotional, but I'm like, even doing my own, each time I facilitate the Room to Thrive program with the Thrive framework, it's important to review things. It's important to and process them. Each new person, or in my case, group that I'm processing it with, also sheds light on the material in a different way. And I love, first of all, I fell in love with Dr. Marty Seligman. I don't know him in person, but his work in like the mid 2000s, it just was such a great hook to say, well, the whole field of psychology is centered at that time around pathology, what goes wrong in the human mind. But what about post-traumatic resilience? Why is it that some people who you would expect would be really have difficulty functioning in life because of their terrible, circumstances are flourishing? And why don't we study that? And that's just such a great, I mean, it's such a great applicability. I don't think initially developed for chronic illness, but it is, it is applicable to rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmunity. Of why is it that some people flourish with a condition? And I think a key to it for me in my personal life that relates to like acceptance and commitment therapy, and in the groups I've done too, has been that example that you gave with the dog of not asking yourself, what do I wish I could do right now? Saying, what can I do? Opening yourself up to what's possible right now, and not putting all your hopes on a future that might not ever come when you quote unquote get back to normal or get back to your healthy pre-diagnosis self. But isn't it hard to let go of that hope sometimes though? Or expectation?
For sure. And I think that for a long time, and I think maybe even still, I'm grieving what I thought my third chapter would be, right? So I'm 58 now. What I thought my third chapter would be is different than I had always been planning for, right? And all of a sudden, it could be very different. And it's, as my son is getting married next year, and I'm thinking, okay, so strength training so that, in future I'd be able to hold any babies that are going to come this way. No pressure to them. But, I know that they want to have a family at some point. And, thinking about really linking what's important and what I can influence, because there are so many concerns that can swamp out any thought of influence. I think that's the thing with rheumatoid arthritis, is it's just so, I can feel great one day, and the next day I can start to get out of bed and realize I can't stand on one foot.
Yeah.
And it's confusing for those around you as well, because they're like, well, you walked 3 miles yesterday. Why can't you stand today? Well, I don't know. Well, when will, do you want to walk tomorrow? With friends. Well, if I'm going to cancel that today, do you want to do it tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I would like to, but I don't know. And so I got certified as a facilitator in Brene Brown's Dare to Lead curriculum. And I still work with that in my professional life. And one of the things she defines vulnerability is the emotion you feel when there's uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure is vulnerability.
Wow.
So I feel like rheumatoid arthritis is like living in vulnerability because there's uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure all the time. Because if your body's not working, well, now you just have to adjust your whole day. And that can be challenging to those around you because when somebody says, "Hey, would you like to come for dinner next week?" I would love to. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it doesn't happen. And I think if you're not in this world, you don't understand. They're just like, "Oh, she's flaky." I don't know what story they make up, but sometimes it feels like you miss a lot, and that's hard.
Yeah, and I always my workaround for this is typically to say, "Hey, let's make a plan A and a plan B." Like
Yeah.
I want my brain wants to
Mhm.
go, and
Yeah.
but my body might not allow me to go. So, but it's a lot of emotional and executive functioning load to then be like, okay, so then I'm gonna make a plan B, but what if I can't make the plan B? And this person ends up perceiving that you're flaky when you're actually at the whims of some. It's like the weather. It's just there's
Mhm.
some part of it that's going to be out of your control. And I think, yeah, you've certainly expressed a really core part of why this is so hard outside of the actual symptoms, like outside of the fact that the reason you have to say no is the flare up, and
Mhm.
that's not comfortable either. The actual
Well,
physical feeling.
yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's the thing with the well-being and the thriving and the flourishing and the resiliency is when I'm in pain, I am often, it's the hardest for me to reach into being values aligned. It's as if I lose, it's as if the light goes out on those. And so then I think being able to lean into my values really helps me chart my course. Pain seems to dull all of those. And then I feel like I'm not being the person I want to be. Do you see what I
Right.
mean? And
Oh,
that can be challenging.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's more common in my personal life that anxiety is the thing that kind of makes it decreases my capacity to be like the person I want to be because I just kind of get irritable. I don't know if you get
Mhm.
irritable or, and I think yeah, there's just no way of getting around it. It just does. This is why people are like, oh, you have arthritis, but it doesn't have you, or, you're conquering it. Well,
Yeah.
it is hard, but I think it's
Yeah.
important to say that there are days when I don't thrive.
Sure.
And that's okay. That to me, that is part. I try to think of like Dr. Russ Harris in my head, my
Mhm.
personal friend in my head, being like a full life will have the full range of human emotions. You don't
Yeah.
get to just pick and choose. You
No.
don't just get to be like, I'm only going to feel happy and
Yes.
100% healthy and able bodied all the time. Maybe some
Agree.
people are outliers and they get to have that, but most don't.
No.
And that's life. And we still have possibilities. I tried to remind myself, and that's maybe part of thriving is, I mean, it's all, at some point, what's the word? I was gonna say subjective, but it's all like how you define the word. But it is
Yes.
being able to open up to what is in the moment versus what you wish it was, you
I
know?
do. I agree. I think it's about growing, and I do think it's similar to flourishing. I don't know if I could say what the difference is really,
Mm.
but and it's also about being values aligned and moving
Mhm.
towards, sort of intentionally creating the life you want. And I think it's important to have that hope. I was just reflecting on the loss of Dame Jane Goodall, which was really
Oh,
devastating.
yeah.
And I
Mm.
was lucky enough to see her speak live in New York years ago, and she was just, I was mesmerized. But, her whole thing is when they asked, what was the meaning for your life? And she said, hope. And I think sometimes that hope is what I'm trying to lean into because at times it goes a little dark when I'm in pain. I lose the hope. And then as the pain recedes, I can kind of get back into the, and I'm like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And I know it's interesting because I feel like I'd heard interviews with her, and everything, but I don't think I deeply kind of processed her work until this last weekend. She said something that was really interesting about like everyone says think global, act local, but she was saying sometimes when you think global, it's too overwhelming. It's
Mhm.
actually because you just feel it's only rational to feel despair when you think
Mhm.
global because there's so much going wrong. And she was
Mhm.
kind of recommending that people think actually local
Yeah.
first, think of what,
Yeah.
and think in our case, we can say hyper local, what can I do today? Like you mentioned with the
Yes.
dog situation,
Yeah.
what that's what I think that's all we can do. That's all we know is for sure is the present moment.
I agree. And I think the other thing she says is everything that you do may have an unintended consequence. So
Mm.
be really intentional about what you're doing, even if it's not even your advocacy or, activism. It's how you're using the resources that may impact our
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
What are the choices you're making? I think it can get as small as that we're making an impact.
Mm.
And also, she said her favorite animal is dogs because of the unconditional love.
I loved that. Oh, that's so funny. I know you're like somebody who is, known for being the gorilla person is like dogs are the best.
I know, and because she said chimpanzees, what was it? She said chimpanzees, had personalities, and some of them she really loved, and some she didn't like as much, just like humans. But dogs, they're all love.
Yeah, I know, that's so, so sweet. Well, the last question I had for you before we go to the rapid fire questions is, I want to start asking this question to everyone because I think this is what we all kind of wonder when we're first diagnosed, which is what is a day in your life like with your condition
Oh,
and just your overall life? Yeah.
so I think it can be very different. Like I said, sometimes I can just wake up and bound out of bed, and then it's, whatever I had planned. And I'm a big planner, so I love that. I luckily work from home. So
Yeah.
a day in the life would be I would get up and walk the dog with my husband and have breakfast, and then have a day of client coaching sessions or perhaps some meetings,
Mhm.
take lunch on the screen porch, look at some nature, an afternoon, writing things up or more clients, and then evening dinner with family and at home. So trying to build in some, I actually do yoga twice a week with one of my work colleagues. We meet on Zoom, a yoga with Adrian together.
Oh,
And
I'll put
then
a link to yoga with Adrian in the show notes because
she is a
yeah.
self-compassion intervention. She's amazing.
Mhm.
So both have joined her membership, but Adrian's so generous that she gives so many practices on YouTube for free. So
Yes, she really does. Yeah.
she's so generous. And then my strength training as well, sort of build that in twice a
Mhm.
week as well. And then I walk with, I'm very lucky, I have a couple, like three friends in my neighborhood who will walk when we can, sort of get out and walk
Mhm.
laps with our dogs or just with each other. And then some socializing in the evenings. So if, not as much as when the kids were in school where it felt like there was something every night, whether it was a
Yeah,
sports,
yeah.
something like that. No, these are sort of super intentional things. My husband's a big extrovert, and he's a big sports fan. So there's usually some sports watching or something. And I love to read. And when I don't have function, it's really about slowing down and really being intentional about what to do with the energy I have and really listen in, which is hard for me because I just like to go.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think, I mean, again, if I could project myself onto you, but it's also, I realized when I started discovering like somatic work and like, my therapist was like, what is that? Where do you feel that in your body? And I was like, my brain, because that's where my feelings are. She's like, no. Well, okay. But like, where literally, I'm like, literally my brain. Like, it was took me so long to figure out what my body was feeling because I had, as a coping mechanism to allow me to go, I had completely disassociated from my body and unless the pain was really bad, I just couldn't avoid it. But I think that I forget why I was initially going with this sentence, but yeah, just I think being able to pay attention to your body and that it allows you to help pace a little bit better because before I might pace just out of principle, but I wouldn't really be feeling why I was doing it, you know?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Oh, yes. I know.
Yeah. Feel like just as my other therapist said, because I eventually went to one that was someone female therapist. She was a general anxiety therapist, which was so helpful. And then I ended up going to my current therapist because of the claustrophobia and like specific phobia and anxiety part was the part that I needed somebody who really specialized in that because that was
Yes.
not getting kind of any, that wasn't getting a lot better. I mean, better is like a relative term, but point being, and he is, oh my God, sorry, my brain fog today. I'm like, I went dancing last night, speaking of values aligned activity, and I knew this was going to happen today. It was like I traded off. One of the things that I didn't get my normal amount of sleep last night, but it was a special grand opening of this ballroom in Seattle that had been renovated. And I'm like, I know tomorrow my brain's going to be a little bit weird. Well, how was I talking about? Okay, I can't remember. When I look at the transcript later, I'll see a connection to why I was talking about. But anyway, yeah, hard. You were talking about what day in your life is kind of
Yeah.
hard, and that is such a great response. That it's first of all that whole premise of the question is really hard because there's like a good day, a tough day, and then there's maybe the medium day, and it's like every day is like playing roulette, like which one you're gonna get.
Well, yes, and especially as somebody who's a planner, there's the day I planned and there's the day I get. And
Yeah.
I could even start a day and be pretty good till lunchtime. And then I think the brain, I think you are so right. The brain fog is brutal at times. And actually the fatigue, which is something that, somebody outside of the RA community wouldn't get. But how sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I feel like I haven't gone to sleep yet. What is whereas I always used to wake up refreshed. So I think there are lots of things that we deal with. And I think that is sometimes the challenge of these inverted commas invisible illnesses. I mean, people can look at my hands and see the damage on my hands, but they don't realize the other things or if I'm limping, they don't realize the other things that you're managing a lot with an autoimmune condition.
100%. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can think of to do is just keep telling our stories, keep, sharing about it because it is not intuitive to just kind of grasp. I think our culture has a lot of like messages that I used to subscribe to before I became chronically ill of like, just push through. No, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of thing. It's, that's not actually true. I know even the most, able-bodied person still needs to sleep every night. Like we have limits to our bodies, whether we like to believe it or not.
Absolutely. And I do think sleep I mean, if you put that in the day, I really prioritize sleep. When I don't get the right kind of sleep, then I notice it really impacts my function the next day or the day after. And so I really prioritize sleep.
Yeah, me too. And I noticed so the next day I'm like I'm okay emotionally, but I'm have more brain fog. But then 2 days later, especially if I haven't adequately caught up, then it's like my mood will be a lot more affected. And yeah, I think we got to be sleep divas. I printed a mug for myself that said sleep diva and protect your sleep. We got to fight for our right to sleep. I also become a lot funnier to myself when I'm sleep deprived. That's a bonus.
Oh, yeah, and I actually want to circle back to the coping strategies.
Oh, yeah.
Numerous one. Because I noticed that when we're watching shows in the evening, I always want to finish on something that makes me laugh. Especially if you watch something that's like a crime thing. I can't watch too much, but I'm like this with the violence. And there are some things that I'm just like, that's going to be a you show. But humor, like being able to laugh is just huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is one of the great things of the internet that has come out of it is chronic illness memes.
Yeah.
In my mind, be able to share those memes and feel seen by them is so lovely. So this is great. I have some rapid fire questions that each one could actually be really long. What are some quick words of wisdom for somebody who's newly diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis? I mean, everything you said they should listen to, but yeah.
I think I would say be kind to yourself and take it day by day. Kindness and self-compassion, I think. And actually, my top value is love. So I often ask myself, how am I going to love myself through this? And so it's more of a question than anything. But I think at the core, we're all love, aren't we? So it's a
Wow.
great question to ask yourself. How well I love myself through it.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I haven't really asked myself that question in those exact words, you know? I think that's a great way to envision true self-compassion. And this is a great one, but do you have a different favorite quote or inspirational saying, maybe for like tough days?
So my overall favorite quote ever is the Gandhi quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I think that kind of is out and it's also in, right? Where do I have opportunity to pivot here? What's possible for me in this? So I think it goes both ways. Yeah.
I love that. I never thought of it being internal as well, but I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Totally different note. Do you have a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox?
Oh my goodness. I learned so much from you in the Room to Thrive. I have so many. Look what I'm writing with today.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
all my
Built-up
tubes
handle.
and my pens.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is actually an eyeliner I was using for
Oh,
demonstration.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna put that on my eyeliner. I didn't even have that. I have
Yeah.
the things. I bought the knife that is like the right
90-degree. Yeah. 90-degree
90-degree
angle
knife.
knife.
And even now, it's so funny when I'm chopping things, and when you were like, "Well, you can do this," and it's womp, womp, womp. I even make the womp, womp noise with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I actually got a spade for the garden, a little digger that is right angle too, so I can use that. I got the gloves, the bionic glove things for I follow your whole list of
Oh my
gadgets
gosh.
that help. It's ridiculous. And it's helped me so much. Oh, the thing that you open jars that goes under the
Yes.
cabinet.
The Jiffy Twist under cabinet jar opener. I use that so often.
That is everything. I mean, I no longer am I, "Can somebody help me in here?" I am like opening
Yep.
jars like a pro. Yes, all the things. In fact, can you put the link to your
Yes.
top tips below? Because
Yeah.
I go back to that all the time.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I did put that link in there. I just used the gardening tools this weekend, actually, because we're trying to do some last minute planting before it starts
Yeah.
getting really cold. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Oh, and the gloves, the compression gloves. And yeah, look, they're right here.
Beautiful. Do you have a favorite book or movie or show you've watched or read recently? Wow.
Ooh. So my favorite show is Outlander, and the new season 8, the final season is about to come on. This, I think it's in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for that. But I've been really enjoying Blood of My Blood, which is the prequel to Outlander. It's the two main characters in Outlander's parents and their story. And that is
Oh.
every bit as good as Outlander. And I think that's probably on the same channel. But I absolutely love that. So I'm really loving that. And then book, I'm diving into Brené Brown's new book, Strong Ground, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. The Lessons of Daring Leadership, the Tenacity of Paradox, and the Wisdom of the Human Spirit. So
Wow.
loving this latest one. And I also love, my favorite author is Isabella Allende. I love all of her books. She's such a magical storyteller. But I'm really loving Alka Jo. She has all these different, she has the henna artist, the perfumist of Paris, 6 Days in Bombay. She's 4 books, and they're just gorgeous stories. I love really good stories, and especially when you can follow families down through different books. And
Yeah.
I love a
I
good family saga.
Oh, I love that. This is, not as deep as those, but I've been reading some little romance series where it's like siblings, like like each one finds their love story in each one of the books. They're so great. They're so
Oh,
fun. Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Well, you know, the other first person who I pre-order every single one of her books that she writes, and I've read every single one, is Catherine Center. Catherine,
Oh,
her books are amazing. They're funny and they're like a romantic comedy, but they're all, I found her through Brené Brown.
oh,
They've got emotional agility and courage, and they've sort of got the themes
hey.
of that work through them. And so I really love her stuff too. You might love that because it's more,
Oh my
it's a
gosh.
great read, but it's funny and light and really adorable.
Yeah, I'm looking now. I'm trying to think if I read. No, I haven't. I don't think I've read any of these. Sometimes I do everything on Kindle, so then I'll
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
forget what the name
yeah,
of the
yeah,
book
yeah.
was. So, oh, I can't wait. I love, yeah, when the emotional connection is there. That's
Yes.
my favorite. Yeah. Oh, so
Yeah.
great. Okay. Well, and we've kind of answered this in many ways, but last question. What does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with rheumatoid arthritis?
Oh,
Hard
I
one.
think if I can bring a loving presence and contribute positively to the world, then that's what matters. I think, I mean, not get stuck in the hard is really transcend the hard and still live a life of meaning, I think is what I'm going for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Again, this was such a great life affirming conversation. And I know some people might want to find you or connect with you online. Is your social media public?
You can find me on, so my website is helensamsonmullen.com.
Right.
Find our Autoimmune Campfire podcast on Substack. It's the Autoimmune Campfire that I do with Nona Jordan.
I
And
love that name, by the way. I just love
y-
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a come to the campfire. Come on
Beautiful.
over. We'll have some
Yes.
s'mores. And then, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. And that's Helen Samson.
Okay, perfect. And it's totally fine if you keep your social media private. I just literally forgot for a second. I was like, wait. Yeah, that's awesome. And I just so American. I mean, whenever I say awesome to a British person, I'm like, I'm so American.
I say it all the time
Oh,
now.
you
And
do. Now
even if
you
I'm British anymore.
no, you still do. You still do. Well, no, it's just wonderful to talk to you. I just love how you're very much like a big picture thinker, and you're able to just explain these kind of very, I think, sometimes abstract concepts like, values and meaning and love and all these things. Like you're able to explain how they actually show up for you in a way that's just really makes it seem achievable to thrive with our conditions and or with whatever's going on. I know you work with leadership training.
Yeah.
There's challenges in every area of life, whether it's work, whether it's health. And so
Mhm.
I love this conversation. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you again another time. Bye bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Rheum to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.